Saints fans, welcome back to the Saints TV podcast. Well, somehow that was our biggest win since 2017, lads, which is something I did not expect to see this week, but I'm glad I did. A 70-point win against the Eagles. You know, it is the Eagles, but it's nice to see the boys win up and about. A 7-goal final quarter. Tim Membry kicks a bag of 5, and I think we're all feeling okay about ourselves after that one. How are you guys feeling?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. I had a feeling that not turning up to the game on the weekend would mean that I'd miss our biggest win in 7 years. It's just that's what happens. But it was good to watch from home. Ordered in, had mum on FaceTime for the first time in years. Haven't really watched a game with her all year, so that was a good fun watch. And I feel like we're building some sort of form under Marvel. We're starting to get a grip to how to, I guess, kick more goals, to play a bit of a faster brand of football, and it's what happens when you hit targets going inside 50 as well.
Definitely. Jake, how are you feeling physically as well? Last week you took the week off. After...
I know, yeah. No, feeling good now. Still building into it, but much better now. And it takes a lot for me to miss Saints TV weekly and not be on the potty. So it was a bit sad, but sometimes you got to put your health first, don't you, Sammy?
Of course.
As you would.
Well, exactly, yeah.
With
hence working on the hair regrowth.
Was that the first time you missed the podcast? Have you ever missed a podcast before?
I don't think so, actually. I think that might be the first episode out of all of them that I've not been on.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, I don't think so.
There you go. Anyway, Sammy, how are you feeling?
It was nice to see us win a very close game for the first time this year. Very nice to see. Basically an open training session. I was loving it. We were pretty good for the whole game. Maybe first quarter wasn't amazing, but for the most part, I thought we were pretty great.
Yeah.
So good, easy watch. Wasn't nervous at all for most of that game. I was like, oh, this is a nice feeling. Yeah. So this is what it feels like.
Our last quarters, apart from Adelaide, our last quarters have been pretty good the last 5 or 6 weeks when you think about it. We actually go up a little bit in the last quarters. Like the Sydney game we lifted, Brisbane obviously we did. This week we went up a notch and put them to the sword. Port Adelaide we dominated without really getting the reward we deserved. We're kind of ending games pretty strong, which is nice to see. Yeah,
no, for sure. I think there was a lot of little improvements throughout the entire game, which was nice to see. The energy was there, the effort was there. A few rundown tackles was really nice to see. Sinclair did a really nice one. Sharman did a really nice one. I thought overall, like, game plan, tactical sort of on that side of the game, I really liked the way that we nullified Barras and their intercept defenders.
Yeah, didn't notice them.
Yeah, it would have been, how many times have we talked about, kicking it to Sicily's or Alirs, those sorts of players, Stewart's. But it didn't really feel like Barras had an impact on the game at all, because it felt like we were actually spotting up targets inside 50 and there wasn't just these long bombs, and just a bit more planning into our entries, which was nice to see. And I thought Jack Steele really led the way with that. It was 7 inside 50s that, he was hitting up his targets, which was really nice to see. And maybe that's something that, when Max comes back into the team, we can, instead of just bombing it on his head every time, we see that there's actually a better way to move it inside 50 and actually make it easier for him.
Yeah.
Because look at what we did for Timmy Membry. He kicks 5 goals and he's looking like a bit of a rock star out there. So, yeah, what do you guys think of all that?
I never try to read too much into these games. I don't know if you're the same.
Yeah.
For me now, it's kind of like, okay, back it up against Essendon. Then I'll have
in terms of the Membry aspect?
No, I mean...
Are you talking about the team?
The team collective, yeah. I mean, it's hard to gauge because I feel like we have improved over not just this game.
Yeah.
This game was kind of... We put a bit more together that we've been building for 3 or 4 weeks. You know what I mean?
I agree.
So I don't think it was a one-off and we played West Coast and they just made things easy for us. I think, not every team is going to beat them by 12 goals. I mean... Well, maybe they are. I don't know. But like Brisbane did in the week before, 13 points, and they let West Coast kick 90-odd points. So I kind of want us to back it up against Essendon before I can get too ahead of myself. But there was some good signs. We're starting to utilise Sharman, Membry. Even Owens I thought was actually better.
Yeah.
Not to the level of last year, but I still think he was flying for it. He kicked a good goal on the run. There's little things there that he can build off.
Yeah. So what did you think of those little improvements, Sammy?
I think there are improvements across the ground, particularly the utilisation of space and leading in the forward 50, because more often than not we see it as we'll bomb the ball inside 50 and see that as a win. It's not a win if you're not converting, if you're not hitting a target. And it's really the fault of midfielders and forwards. Forwards weren't leading a lot of the time, not in this game particularly, and then midfielders just weren't hitting targets or hitting them on the head when they shouldn't be. But that was change in this game. Membry was leading in a way which I haven't seen him done this year. Midfielders, for the most part, were hitting targets and not kicking to packs. So little improvements and little tinkering changes that made it a lot easier for us, because we like making hard work of things that should be relatively simple and overcomplicating things when they shouldn't be there. But as Jake said, it's easy to, maybe it's not easy, but it's far more simple to do it against a down-and-out Eagles who were pretty much uncompetitive for 3/4 of that game than it is, say your middle-of-the-table teams, your top-end teams. So if it's backed up next week, then we can go back and say, okay, the improvements are there, they've been cemented. Otherwise, it's like, well, what's it for? You're beating down on a bottom-end team.
You can only play who's in front of you, of course, but it's like as long as you can show that you can do that consistently, it's great. I thought something that was really good to see was that we actually played a much better forward half game. Everyone talks about how our ball movement is boring and all that, but we're actually, from scoring off our defensive half, we're one of the better teams in the competition. It's when we have the ball in the forward half, which is, a big part of our connection piece inside 50. Our forward half game has not been good all year, but our pressure was elite. We had 22 tackles inside 50, which I thought was fantastic. And that's a big part of our game, bringing the pressure, obviously. But I loved seeing that when we had the ball in our forward half, and this goes back to what we were just saying about the connection piece, we actually were able to still hold on to the ball and hit up each other in an actual chain of disposal instead of, sort of that more manic bombing sort of type thing. So it was nice to see it come together. But, as we say, hard to read because, you're playing West Coast.
Well, exactly. And I think, there was one thing I noticed, and that some of the turnovers we have are still horrendous. Whilst the Schools were better, West Coast is not a team that's going to really punish you on turnover. Other teams will. So that's something we need to be cognizant of. We don't need to move the ball really fast when they're not. There's no point because it just gets turned over every time. Yeah,
and we seem to always lose a good player when we're playing good football. We've lost Kingy. We've lost... Philippo will be back hopefully for a couple of games, but he was finding form, and now Liam Henry. And that's sort of that player that has been hitting form. I kind of liked his game. He kicked a beautiful pass to Sharman on the lead. Set both his goals up from outside 50, which was good. Now we're going to have to go back and... maybe this is the chance finally for Garcia to actually get minutes from the start.
Yep.
Because even when he came on, he laid 3 tackles in less than a quarter, pretty much?
Yeah, quarter and a half,
His stats were good, better than some players that had played majority of the game.
Yeah.
So it's an opportunity now. I feel like we took advantage of what we needed to. There wasn't... We can't walk away from this game as fans and think, there was more there to be had. I feel like 12 goals. We kept him to 41, which is a nice sign. It wasn't 100 to 160. It was 113, which is still relatively low score when you think of a 72-point win. It's because we kept him to such a low score.
But I like that because...
No, I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
For sure. But what I said last week on the podcast was I'd like to see a balance of our defensive and offensive game.
100%.
So I prefer win 120 to 40 or whatever it was then, 160 to 100, because our defense is our strength. We shouldn't shy away from that. We just have to bring an offensive game on top of that. And I thought that was one of the nicest balances of both our games that I've seen all year.
Yeah, and I think that's probably what Ross has been building towards for so long, is we know that the defensive sort of structure's there. We know that Battle, Wilkie, Howard, Webster, Stocker, I thought he was actually very good. You know what they're going to do. It's just kind of, okay, now let's actually take advantage of all the good work they're doing and put it on the scoreboard. And if that starts to click into play over the next 6 weeks, we're going to cause a few upsets, I think. So only... good signs from here, I would say.
Definitely. And the game was surprisingly competitive in that first half. I think there was a bit of a battle going on between Harley Reid and Rowan Marshall, which was kind of...
Harley Reid was just angry. Was he just pissed because we've cost him the Rising Star? Do you reckon he... that was in the back of his mind.
Yeah, a little bit
you know what, I'm out of the race now. Let's just throw some fists. Let's just...
He's got nothing to lose.
Yeah. He's not winning the Brownlow.
He doesn't have to suppress his anger anymore.
Is there any award for him still to win? I don't think so.
No, he's still great though. He's still
Yeah,
great.
he's a
like,
star.
we can all agree on that.
I do
He's a
love
star.
that he was running through the middle and ran like 25 metres.
Yeah.
Got pinned for running too far. My mum loved that.
You don't see it very often as well. So I'm like, bit of consistency. Love to see it.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
My mum's got it out for him, to be honest. I'm
Really?
going to put her on the spot here.
Oh, come on.
She can't stand Harley Reid. She's like,
Okay.
he's just a show off. I wouldn't want him at St Kilda. I'm like, I'll take him.
Oh,
I'm like,
come
Mum,
on.
$2 million a year. Give it to him. I'm
I'd give him
taking
an office overlooking RSEO
yeah,
Park,
yeah.
whatever he wanted.
Yeah, nah, she loved it when he ran too far. It was like we kicked a goal or something. It was awesome.
Seriously, a genuine question though. Because I saw a kid in the front row holding up a sign that said, "How good would it look like this?" or something, a picture of Harley Reid's face with the St Kilda Guernsey. If there was one player in the entire competition that we could have, like, just bring him over, would it be Harley Reid? Because for me, I know this is a little off topic, but that sign's got me thinking, yeah, like, Harley is probably the number one player I'd want at the club, just with his age, the way he plays, the role that he would fill for us. I mean, this isn't the Harley Reid show, but I just think if the opportunity ever arose, I'd love to see us jump at it.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to go past him for like longevity, but if it was just kind of immediate A grade gun, I mean, I'd still love like a Charlie Curnow in the forward line. Like,
that would be pretty
him
elite.
and King together, like they do Mackay and Curnow, but I'm like, King and Curnow is like,
Oh, that'd be elite.
like that's ridiculous. And
Or like a Colby McKercher in the guts.
Yeah.
That kid is so good at footy.
he's
so
very
good at football.
Yeah. North
Some of
of
his
some-
kicks yesterday in that Carlton game were just elite.
Just insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Anyway, moving on from
Yeah,
opposition
sorry,
players.
segue there.
Mason Wood, guys, is he just a forward for us now? He had 12 score involvements. I just love that every time we score, he seems to be involved with it. He was like 3-4 himself. He seems to be like a really good part of that connection piece that we're talking about. And just every time he touches the ball, it turns into a score. So how do we feel about that? Next season, are we looking at moving him into the forward line, or do we just like that role he plays on the wing and he just happens to be a part of those chains anyway?
He's a hybrid. There's going to be games like on the weekend where every touch he has turns to goal, and he sets up goals, he kicks goals of himself, and then there's going to be weeks where we're going to need him to dominate that wing and really create space for leading forwards like a King and Sharman when they're playing. I feel like he's hovering closer to goal because we don't have that main target. You know, we need the Woods, we need the Sharmans, the Membries, the Owens to drift forward. Even Steely drift forward and kick to goal. We need other players to actually get in on the act now. We can't rely on one. So why would I wouldn't change anything that Mason Wood's doing.
Yeah.
I think it's a byproduct of his hard work. He's just a guy that will be everywhere all at once. And whether it's forward line or the wing or even defence in bigger games against good opposition, we're going to need him to be that guy.
Yeah. I definitely can agree with, like, you know, he is just a hybrid sort of player. However, you look at a player sort of like Josh Battle, we moved him around forever, obviously. You know, we won't talk about his whole future, but once he got put in one position, that's when he played his best footy in the back line. And I don't know if we would be doing Mason any favours by changing his position every week. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's not the same because the positional change to me is he's a hybrid. So he starts on the wing. He can go forward if he wants. He can go back if he wants on that one side of the ground that he owns. So that's the point. That's the job of the winger.
So ultimately, though, you're keeping him on the wing.
Pretty much default, like at the bounce. Unless it's Brad Hill, Liam Henry, or Brad Hill, Darcy Wilson, or something like that. Now that Liam Henry's out, maybe Wood has to go there.
Sure.
But I don't think we need to change anything that Mason Wood's doing.
Sammy, what do you think? Would
No,
you move him forward?
I would agree. I would agree with what Jake is saying. You look at all the better teams in the competition, and the reality is that it's not just their forwards that are hitting the scoreboard. Look at Sydney. You've got Goulden, Heaney and Warner kicking 2 to 3 each week. And that's what you need in a good team. And I think that's what he provides us with.
Yeah, no, definitely. Another forward that I thought was doing some great things, Cooper Sharman. His 2 goals were set shots from outside 50. I can't
He's got
believe
a
that.
great kick.
He sure does.
Just one of the best kicks in our team.
Yeah, and like you said, Jake, he as soon as he kicks it, he knows that it's going in.
I was going to say,
as well.
he's the easiest person for me because I just watch him every time.
Yeah.
And the second it leaves his boot, he goes bang straight away. And I'm like, it's not even halfway to the goals, mate. Like, leave some mystery. We don't
I
know
kinda
yet,
like
you
the
know?
confidence,
But he's
though.
straight, and he knows straight away the second it leaves his boot that it's a goal. He's our best set shot in the comp. And to me, I've always said he, at his best, could be like our Bailey Fritsch. You know, he can bob up and kick a 5 or a 6 one day, and I hope he does soon.
Yeah.
He kicked, 3 or 4 against Freo in his debut year.
in the final round.
In the final round. But I think he's building towards another bag pretty soon.
Me and Sammy spoke about it last week, but is Cooper Sharman in your best 23 next year, round
Yes.
one? Yep. And so are you running King, Caminiti, Sharman as a forward line?
Yeah, I mean, Caminiti, he's fit this week. I don't know if we can fit him in and trial that and give a Sharman, Caminiti, Membry sort of show.
It's a tall back line for Essendon as well. So
yeah, so
do
we're
you
going to
want
need
to
that
go
height.
tall? Yeah. But I also
It's a tough
positioned to Ari that, obviously we've been playing Hammer back quite a bit. Is that something that we're going to be looking at next year where he will have a positional change? Because it's like, looking at Rory Lobb at the Western Bulldogs, it's been a revelation for him. It could potentially be the same for Hammer. He's got the hands to do so.
He does, yeah.
So maybe that's something that we have lined up for him.
Yeah, I think we'll know. I mean, if we bring him in this week and he plays in the back line, I think that kind of says it all.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Especially with no King. You're still playing Caminiti back. It's like, well, that's what Ross wants.
Yeah.
That's what he gets. Yeah.
Definitely. And it was, of course, Healy's 250th. The club did a really good job of celebrating that through the week, and I thought cheering him off, the interview after the game, everything was handled really nicely. What does Brad Hill mean to this footy club? Because he's just re-signed for 3 years.
Deserved.
Yep, very much deserved. He's, obviously copped some flack early on, whether you think that was deserved or not. He's probably had a really good last 2 years for us, I'd say. Age of 30, he's going to, be at the club for another 3 years. How we sitting with Brad Hill and celebrating his career so far? And sorry, just a quick fun fact. He's played for Freo, Hawthorn and St Kilda. He's played the most games for St Kilda now. So he's more of a St Kilda player than anyone else. Of course, he won those 3 premierships at Hawthorn, so people would argue that. Hilly the Saint, how are we feeling?
Oh, I just love he's one of those rare players that, you go to training and you see all his teammates, they all love him. He brings a good vibe to the club. And I feel like that's underrated, that sort of thing. Every club needs those sort of players that when you go to training after a bad loss, some people criticize and say, why is he smiling? But that's almost his job in a way, is to be that sort of bring it together type of player. I feel like, especially, leading the way for the Indigenous contingent that we've got as well. Yeah. He's done an amazing job there. And then you can see Naz sort of following in his wings and learning off him. I feel like I love that he was criticised so heavily, but he's worked through it on his own accord. Yeah. And I know, some people will still criticise him, but I haven't seen one comment in months, years even. Yeah. Which is credit to him because he's hit his best form, and I dare say Ross just knows how to play him.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a credit to Ross as well.
It takes a guy that knows Brad Hill, that's coached him before, to get the best out of him, and now that's what we're seeing. And the type of player that he is, he'll play for another 5 years.
Yeah, his body seems to hold up pretty well.
He's not injury prone, is he?
No, he's had a few knocks, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Right? But, it's very hard to criticise someone who gives you 100% every week. Because not everyone does that. But, he's in a very select handful of players that's going to leave everything out on the field. And he just brings that energy, that larrikin energy. He's good for our culture. I think he's a great club person for us to have, and he's a great player.
Yeah, and we can't underestimate his experience in the big games and in the finals and grand finals.
I mean,
exactly. Duke medal.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I think we all love him.
Yeah. No. And I think what Ross has done so well is playing him to his strengths. Hilly's not an inside midfielder by any stretch or a big contested player. He's outside classy ball user, and I think we've seen the best of him these last 2 years. So credit to Ross and Hilly, of course, for working so hard. We've already talked about it, but Mitchie Owens probably had a return to form. Like, it's hard to say that was his best game for the year. Probably was, but obviously he didn't set the world on fire. How are we feeling about Mitchie and Darcy? We talked about it a bit last week already, but Darcy's really struggled to sort of get into any form after sort of those first few weeks where he kind of set the house on fire a little bit. And Mitch seems to be working back into it. How are we feeling about that?
I think Mitch is really good at crashing packs and contesting for the ball, but when it comes to actually getting the ball in hand, he's not amazing, and that's been a consistent theme throughout the year, and I think it was the same on the weekend, despite the fact it was a better game for him. I still think his form has been, relatively speaking, poor. Now, that could be a combination of confidence, maybe he's playing out of position, but I think for someone like him, he would be perfect in the guts, because he is that, that rough and tumble, that up and under player that's going to get the hard ball from the ground, and it just doesn't work for him in the forward line. And his set shots, some people might say that he just the ball drop, the way he holds the ball, the way he tries to kick goals, it's hard to watch at the best of times.
On the run, he's much better.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
So
Well,
put him in
where
the guts.
did his only goal on the weekend come from? Was on the run.
Yeah. So put him in the guts, I say. But I think it's a positional thing for him that need to change it up.
I
need
agree.
to change it up.
The more I think of Mitchie Owens, and if they want to persist playing him forward, the more I think they got to show him Aaron Hamill tapes. Because he's almost the same type. Aaron Hamill was a very...
I like that.
Like, even look at the way he took his set shots. His ball drop wasn't the most natural. But Aaron Hamill was a very, very good set shot.
Yeah.
And he crashed packs. He was that instigator. If someone went for a young re-waltz and pushed him over, Aaron Hamill was there and got in the way. Like, I feel like that's... I don't know, I get Aaron Hamill vibes from him if he can... If he's going to play as a forward. If he's a mid, then he's a different player. But if we're going to persist with him in the forward line, then you need to mould him in a certain way, and that's the way that I would mould him.
Yeah.
But look at his build as well. He's built like a mid. Like, he's jacked.
Yeah.
And
is he built like a mid, or is he too built for a mid?
No, I
not
think,
many
I
mids
think
are that big.
he's the perfect build for a midfielder.
Yeah.
I think he isn't built to play forward. I think
Like, is he
he's
bigger
great
than-
to throw down there
He's
and
a bit
take a
too
mark.
stocky for a forward.
Yeah.
That's
Is he
not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Is he bigger than a John Newcomb?
Yeah, probably.
Oh, God, yeah.
reckon he's
Yeah,
bigger
bigger
than
than a John Newcomb. Who would he be similar to? Maybe like a George Wardlaw. They have a similar-ish build.
Yeah, you
They're
reckon
just
George?
big, hunky, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we've talked about it so often about moving Mitch to the midfield,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's just a frustration that continues because it seems so obvious to us. We're fans though. Maybe the coaches know something that we don't. I'd love to know what that is though, because it seems almost obvious that that's where he should be playing.
Yeah.
I hope I get. I need to get him in the rooms before the end of the year, so I can just ask him, be like,
What
"Where do
he
you want to
thinks?
play?
Yeah.
Where do you want to play? Just tell it straight."
Yeah, send the message out.
Yeah.
Well, who was the player? Rochelle. He's the one who questioned why he wasn't getting played in midfield more. I loved that about him. I'd love Mitch to be like, play him in the midfield.
Yeah.
Put me on. Who's a midfielder this week he can play on?
Mitch, who are we playing? Essendon, Merritt,
Nah, not putting him on Merritt.
Nah, I'd put Steele on Merritt.
Who else have they got in there? McGrath.
Cordwell.
Oh.
Yeah.
Too quick for him.
Oh, Cordwell's
Cordwell-
got concussion. Actually, I don't think he's playing.
No.
I'm pretty sure he got concussion on
What
Friday
about
night.
Durham? They've got
Jeez,
similar
yeah, he's
builds.
alright.
Durham v.
You got to be
Mitch would
quick to go with Durham though,
He's
because
good. He runs. He gets.
Yeah,
and
he
goes.
is pretty fast.
he's got good acceleration. That kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Jake, you put on the agenda in one of your videos, can't remember which one, a potential All-Australian berth for one of our players, our big ruckman, Rowan Marshall. Tell us a bit more about this, because I hadn't really thought about it. I thought last year he was so deserving of it and was stiff to miss out. This year, what makes you think this year he could potentially get into that lineup?
Oh, because he's one of those players that gets in that you didn't expect. There's always someone that sneaks in. It's never the favourites. I think Tim English in All-Australian form this year?
Oh,
No,
much
he's so far off.
So Grundy would be one.
Grundy and Gawn, but Gawn's missing
football.
games and might miss a few more. So
Yeah, exactly right.
The door's open.
I think actually Tristan Cherry is actually quietly having an outstanding season.
Yeah, he would be my All-Australian ruckman if I were to pick one now.
We could have had him 2 years ago.
I just don't get the argument where everyone says, "Oh, Rose great around the ground, but he's not good in the middle." And did you watch the AFL's video where they had the table and it was all the All-Australian selectors and they're talking about players?
No. Oh,
It
yes,
was
actually, yes.
kind of.
The
I
one
thought it was
with
kind of
Bucks and
cringe. I'm
Corn,
just going to put it out there. I thought it was kind of cringe. Did you see it?
No.
Yeah.
They're all just listing players and being it was all individual club reps and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's from St Kilda, I guess Jack Steele, Sinclair, Rowan Marshall, but there's too many rucks ahead of him, and his tap work's not as good, and this and that. I'm like, but also he's around the ground work.
But I guess
He's
that's the
elite.
thing is, what's the metric for that? Are they just focusing on tap work because they're a ruckman? Because if so,
But then
he's going to lose out to your Gawn or your Series.
Yeah, but then
So-
there's some tap ruckmen that aren't good around the ground like him.
Yeah.
So I feel like if he continues the form that we've seen for for pretty much the entire year, he's going to win our best and fairest by a mile.
I hope so. He deserves
I don't
one.
think anyone should beat him to it from what I've seen.
Yeah. I mean, there's a few that you could make a case for, but yeah, he'd probably be the favourite.
I feel like he's just been in incredible form, and it's if he finishes the year in the form that he's in, then he's a chance.
Yeah.
I would say right now he's not, but I'm just anticipating that he's just going to do what he's been doing, and he's going to get his 20 disposals and 30 hit-outs a week.
Yeah.
And maybe his tap work has improved. We don't know. This is kind of just something that we say in passing, but no one actually looks at the stats.
Yeah.
So let's have a look at the stats in the next 6 weeks.
I can give you a stat. Someone had 10 clearances on the weekend, and it was him. 10 clearances for a ruckman.
Kane Corns brought that up in the video.
Did he?
Yeah, he said, but everyone gets, Kane was like, he gets 8 or 9 clearances a week, but have you seen them? He just bombs them out. They don't go anywhere.
I don't know if I agree with that, because
I think
his
most of them
clearances
are torped into the forward line.
Yeah.
And that's where you want it.
We don't want to be like bombing it out by any stretch of the imagination, but our midfield is, lacking. We all know. We need someone occasionally to just get the ball and kick it forward, just to win a clearance, get the ball. So I love that part of his game.
Yeah, I do too. I think there's only a couple of games this year where he probably could have gone a handball and not kicked it.
Yeah.
But most of the time you back him in. And I feel like he's almost the complete ruckman. If he gets a bit more of that clearance tap work, then there's no reason why he couldn't be All-Australian.
Is there any other players we reckon could make like the squad maybe? Because I was thinking Battle could potentially be in the squad this year.
I think Sinks' form is skyrocketing so quickly that he could just quickly get back into it despite his bad start to the year.
We take for granted how good he is. Like, we haven't even mentioned him yet, but he just had a monstrous game on the weekend once again. So, but I agree with you.
Yeah, so...
I'd say Callum Wilkie's still in the conversation.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
we just haven't talked about him enough this year, and he's been fantastic as a lockdown intercept defender.
Group,
just clean by hand and foot, and we don't have many players like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good call, especially with, like, no real... Dukes has been in and out... makeshift sort of, Kameni's been thrown back there. He's had Ari back there with him.
And there's a lot of other backmen who are, down on form.
Yeah.
Sam Taylor's out, GWS. Darcy Moore's had a horrible year, so doors open for him.
Yeah, so you could surprisingly go back to back.
Yeah. It's those guys, like, we don't talk about them a whole lot because it's just week in, week out. So consistently, they don't give us a whole lot to talk about.
And we expect that from them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's nice to have a few players that are just like that week to week, perform consistently.
You just trust what they're going to do.
There's that level of trust for sure. Zachy Jones had a great game.
Yeah,
he had a rough week last week. On the ground we were all saying his endeavour was fantastic. The execution was not there, but 10 score involvements, 7 tackles, 26 touches. Thought he had a really nice game, and it was just great to see for him. Who knows what's going to happen with his future, but it's nice to see him out there and playing some really good footy.
Yeah, and it was good to see the shots in the rooms post-game with Skunk, and they had both had their kids, and we're enjoying that moment as well. And I think they're both pretty close friends with Brad Hill anyway.
Yeah.
Or at least Zachy Jones came across when Hilly did, so they've got that in common. And yeah, I was very impressed with his game.
Yeah.
Can't think of too many mistakes. But like every player makes, even Jack Steele cost us a goal at one point.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can't be too picky.
For sure. I thought like we said, the Hilly's 250th celebration was great. Something I would have loved to see was Hilly kick a goal, which unfortunately was ruined by Ryan Bonner.
I thought he was going to go for it, and then he tipped it. I'm like, man, come on, just torp it.
Well, in his post-game interview, he said he was going to torp it, and then he asked Riley Bonner what he should do, and Bonner said, nah, just go the drop punt.
See, I blame.
Didn't do it.
So you're going to blame Bonner for that one, are you?
Well, Hilly blamed Bonner for it.
I'm blaming Hilly. Don't even ask. It's your day. Just do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah, why would you ask someone else that question anyway?
What should I
We
be
were
doing?
so far up at that point. It's just like, do what you want.
It's one of those things like, usually you always... but 10 goals up, last quarter, 250th. Have a go.
Go for the tour. I'd back him in for that as well. I'd back him in.
I reckon,
do it against the Bombers just to make up for it.
For sure.
251.
Lads, I think time for Mosh back to your best. Pretty obvious this one, but Jake, reveal it nonetheless.
Yes, it's Tim Membry. Tim Membry, obviously. Who else would it have been? 5 goals, 23 disposals. How many marks? 12 marks?
A lot.
Of marks.
I'll get it for you. 10.
Good tackle.
7 tackles.
7 tackles. So he was elite. He was the elite player. He was actually the number one in terms of fantasy points across the competition this round.
And champion data.
And champion data. And Jack Steele was in the mix as well with 133. So that's how big his game was. But Skunk takes the cake. It's been a tough year for him. So we've I feel like it's just one of those feel-good moments. He looked like he was enjoying the game. He was enjoying being out there, being the main man, which he hasn't really had to be for so long because we've had Kingy in there. But now, without Kingy, he's the most senior forward we've got.
Definitely. I think some people say, oh, well, it's against West Coast. How much can you read into it? And that's true. But it's like he saw the opportunity there for the taking. And, he said, why not? And I was talking to my brother before the game, like, geez, Ari's not playing. Philippu's not playing. King's not playing. I don't know what I'm excited for about this game, to be honest. Even if you win, it's like West Coast. And then I thought, I'd love to see Tim have a big game. He's been down all year. And that's what we got. And it was so entertaining to watch. And being at the game, the crowd was getting really up and about. The snap he did around his body.
That was nice.
Yeah, and just like, for me, it's not that he kicked 5 goals, because 5 goals is fantastic, but it's the way he kicks them all. Yeah. You know what I mean? It wasn't
They're all
just
different.
Yeah, exactly. And he was creative with the way he was playing. He was really like comprehensively winning his one-on-ones, which I thought was fantastic. So yeah. Fantastic game by him. Best game I've seen from him. That
was a great game.
Well, it was his career best game, which is very odd for someone in their 30s. Like, that's unheard of. Yeah. If you're having those sort of games at the end of your career, it's maybe there's more output from you.
Unless you're Rui against Brisbane and you're taking, 21 marks and kicking 9 or something. Whatever that was. 2016 in the last game of the year. Yeah.
No, for sure. Join over 30,000 other guys in the Mosh Hair Regrowth family and get $50 off your first treatment plan with code SAINTS50 at checkout. Completely customized, totally online, and cheap hair regrowth solutions from $45 a month. Smarter hair loss treatment all starts with a quiz at getmosh.com.au.
He made me take my hat off.
I was just some people get suspicious and be like, does Mosh actually work? So there you go.
It depends if my tube's not glued on properly. It might pull the thing off.
Jake, you think it's time for Jakey's Junk Mail?
Jakey's Junk Mail. Jakey's Junk Mail. Jakey's Junk Mail. Jakey's Junk Mail.
Yeah, beautiful. Let's get straight into it.
Can I just say thank God you're taking charge back of this segment, because it was an absolute shambles last week.
I didn't actually listen to Junk Mail last week because I'm so protective of it. And I'm like, I just don't want to hear the injustice that you boys were.
I was very uncomfortable with it. I'm just putting it out there.
I didn't do a great job with it. I think,
It's not that hard, is it? Just read some questions out.
No.
He made it. He made it hard.
You're meant to say, it's difficult, you got to filter through the questions. There's a few rogue ones in there that I was trying to avoid, but
I should have planted more shitty ones in there for you boys. But...
well, because they're like we love all the listeners of Saints TV,
Absolutely,
of course, but there's a few rogue questions in there that we probably wouldn't read on the show. Yeah. That I was trying to filter through as I was doing it on the run.
I think they're the best ones though. The rogue questions are the funniest ones. They're entertaining.
Depends how far they go, but for sure.
Anyway, back to Jakey's Junk Mail.
This one's from Quirk Dog. When is round 24 fixture coming out? When is it coming out?
I'd expect 2 weeks before.
Yeah. And actually, to add to that, to Quirk Dog's genius question,
genius.
What slot should we get, do you reckon?
It has to be prime time. It's Carlton.
Well, it has nothing to do with us. It's about Carlton.
Yeah, it's a Carlton home game.
It's not going to be Friday night. I know that for a fact.
Yeah.
It's Saturday night, or it's going to be like a Sunday 3:20, isn't it?
Yeah.
I believe they've got the day allocated, just not the time yet, from memory, or am I making a mistake?
No
None
day.
of them.
Oh, okay.
I think it's got, ideally, I think it's got Saturday Arvo.
I would say, Saturday Arvo, you reckon?
4:35.
Then
pretty much.
You'd have to look at the other games. Who's going to be the night game? I'm looking at the slot
we've got with Essendon now. That's what we've got with Essendon. 4:35 Saturday, under the roof.
It depends what's going on with Carlton at the time. Whether they'll
be top 4 by that point.
Yeah.
Oh, true.
But then it's also like, is there a game at the MCG? Yeah. How many is that going to pull over? Yeah. So whoever they think is going to get the biggest crowd, I'd say Carlton fans are going to turn up.
If we're on a run, it'll be Saturday night.
Yeah.
Quick side quest. What's your guys' favourite time slot?
As a fan, I love Saturday night football.
Yeah, same.
As a fan.
Same.
But if I'm like if I put my Saints TV cap on and I'm doing interviews and stuff, a Saturday night game sucks because you're in the rooms, you get out and it's like nearly midnight and like doing the review. Okay. Like it's like logistically, it's a long night.
Yeah.
But I don't mind the Sunday. What was it? What did we have on the weekend? We had Saturday 1:10.
Saturday 1:45. Yeah.
I didn't mind that. Like for like
early.
Doing my content.
Sammy and I are playing footy during that as well. Yeah. I love Saturday nights. Friday nights you got to play footy the next morning. Saturday night.
I'm a Thursday guy all the way. I love Thursday. Go out afterward. You feel horrible the next day. It's great.
Yeah, but if you lose on a Thursday, the wait for the next game is so long.
But it's so exciting because no one else plays on a Thursday. It's the one game for that
Well, we're
night.
not getting
What about
Thursday.
Friday?
No. Friday. Not Friday. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, big difference. Dylan's asking, I've been saying this for ages, hear me out, Dan Butler at half back.
No.
Skills
Yeah, cool.
are not good enough for that, unfortunately.
We'll move on. Brett's asking, thoughts on Keeler switching back to forward, has too much X factor to be in defence. And he did kick 3, including the 2 clutch goals to win the VFL game on the weekend.
He's so tall. He's got a really nice kick. I don't know if you've watched any VFL games.
He has
but
got a nice
He's got
set
a
shot.
really,
Very natural.
really nice kick. It's where he belongs.
Could he play this week?
Potentially, the door's open with
Yeah.
Henry being out. I don't know who we
Support
drop
for
from this
Rowe
game outside
with
of Bonner,
Draper.
but
It's just Bonner's just the default dropped player, isn't
Do you know
he? Every
what?
single week.
Let's just
I thought he was okay.
well, this isn't the segment to
okay.
discuss that, is it?
Yeah.
We've got rules now that I'm back.
Okay.
Alana's asking, do we play 2 rucks against Draper and Goldstein? There we go. This links us back to the original question.
No.
So
I mean-
if it's Draper and Goldstein, you just back row to tackle
I
them
would
both?
back row in. Goldstein's a one-trick pony. He's
Unless
only good at
Caminiti
tap-outs.
comes in and
Yeah.
he can chop out wherever he plays.
Yes.
I mean, I've been saying for weeks I'd love to see Max Heath debut. Maybe,
Yeah.
and this would be the
He had
game
a good
to do
game
it
on
for
the
me.
weekend
So
too.
I'd like to see Max Heath do it.
This one's from Little Man Maine.
Sorry.
New fan in my second season. How can I get more involved in the Saints community? What do you reckon?
Just post lots of comments, DM random people,
Get into all the Saints groups.
get onto all the Saints groups.
Go to training every session.
Yeah,
Oh,
open
that's a good
training.
one.
You meet all sorts of people at
Yeah.
Moorabbin when you go down.
There's like social clubs and stuff. I'm pretty sure they do something down at, remind me what it's called. There's some bar that everyone goes to in the area.
Platform 28.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Before the
platform
game?
20,
Yeah.
28 after the games.
Before
the
the
games,
game.
after the
The
games.
Hoff
it's great.
downtown's great. Good schnitzel there. Good schnitty.
Yeah. And obviously just go to the games.
Yeah, and just
Yeah.
get into the cheer squad if
Yeah.
you can. That's the
Sit in
place
the
to be.
members.
Yep.
That's a good, yeah.
Dylan 2.0 is asking thoughts on us trying to get Dylan Shield. I don't know how much he
Yeah.
adds. Similar stats and play to Seb, but he's quicker. He is quicker.
He'd be an
Dylan
upgrade to Seb
Shield.
Ross for me, but I
Yeah,
still...
Dylan Shield.
He'd be 2 kilometres quicker per hour at best.
I remember making Saints TV in 2018, and he was one of the first players that I posted online saying, we're going to get him. And now it's
remember that.
2024.
I feel like we talk about him every year, and there's always
Well,
rumours
last
and
year there
whispers.
was the murmurs. Yeah.
He's played 3 games this year. He hasn't been terrible. He's injury prone, and he's a cardboard cutout midfielder. Not that he's bad.
Yeah.
He's just very by the numbers.
Just not our focus.
He's an accumulator.
Don't talk
we
too
don't
much
need
about
another
him like that
accumulator.
because we do know he's going to kick 2 and have 45
Yeah,
on the
true.
weekend.
But he's a really nice guy, so good. You know?
Yeah.
Just not our focus. Yeah.
Darcy Wilson is my therapist. Is giving.
Wait, is that the username?
Wow.
Good names today.
Very young to be a therapist, I got to admit. He's only 18.
But I reckon he'd be a good one though.
He seems like he's very
He looks-
softly
he'd
spoken.
sit and listen. you
He'd
know?
have like
He'd
a voice
really
of
listen.
honey, I
Yeah.
reckon. Yeah.
Sam Laylor, Finn O'Sullivan, or Jagger Smith. I will answer that. Jagger Smith.
Yeah, it has
But
to be Jagger.
He dominated his VFL debut on the weekend for Richmond. If he keeps doing that, I reckon they'll pick him at 1.
Yeah, I think he's going to be taken at pick 1. But you never know what clubs
If he
are going to do.
slips and we're there with 4 or 5, mate, he'll be a very nice player to take. But there's a couple of other options in there, I believe, which we'll talk about in coming weeks, closer to the draft. Speaking of that topic, Jack's asking, given we have 3 NGA prospects, Sam Linda, defender, winger, Adrian Cole, key defender, Lennox Hoffman, defender, quality names, all of them, as well as father, son, Elwood Pickett, who apparently is quite a good player, forward mid. Which other players in the draft should we target? I mean, how much have we all delved into that?
I haven't looked at it too much, bar watching highlights of the assumed top 4. That's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we'll delve into it.
Yeah, when that season comes around, we'll be all over it.
There'll be plenty of videos on the channel for that. And lastly, Tim is asking, how can we bottle what we did in the second half Yes, we had poor opposition, but we actually looked like a team that could link possessions. Again, it was a nice change. How can we bottle that? I mean,
I like that we're just a process-driven team, that we're not totally results-based. Just forget about the fact that we kick 7 goals in the final quarter. Just keep playing that way. It shouldn't change because the opposition is different. Obviously, the pressure and the intensity will probably be a little bit higher, but if we are this process-driven team that Ross says we are, then we shouldn't have any trouble with it.
Yeah, I'd love to eventually get to the point where we're a team where it's almost scary how much everything outside of whatever we have to do with the football is irrelevant.
Yeah.
If it's a big crowd, if it's a big Collingwood crowd, I'd love us to not even process that. It's just get the bloody job done. You know, be surgical about it. That's kind of, I think that's the way, at least from the outside, that's the way I think Ross would want us to treat our football, is to just be like, he's always said anywhere, anytime, it doesn't matter, no excuses, rock up, get the job done. So I've got a good chance to do that on the weekend, so I'm pumped for it.
Yeah, and speaking of, let's start talking about it.
Yeah,
5 games.
Thanks to all those submissions. Though.
Absolutely.
Good questions and good usernames. Keep up the good usernames. The more obscure, the better. So keep them coming every week. I love
More
it.
likely to be read out on the show.
And you'll dream about
Milky Face.
Do you want to share that with everyone?
Sure. Okay, so I had a dream the other night that I was at the football, and the person who was Milky Face, who I laugh at every week, approached me and was giving me grief and saying I was bullying about his name. That was the
What did Milky Face look like?
He's just a bald man with a beard. Like, he probably doesn't even look like that in real life. But if you imagine the most generic middle-aged white man that follows a football team, it was that.
You need to get like a sketch artist to
reimagine it, and then
no, he'll be sleeping.
Find him in the crowd.
And he'll pull his little diary out and just try and scribble the face. Like, was it brown eyebrows?
Yeah, bring it to the game. Milky Face.
God.
Anyway, 5 games left. 4 out of those 5 are against top 8 sides. You said it a few weeks ago. We want to be the Grim Reapers. Let's ruin a few seasons. Ross says he loves being a party pooper, and it all starts this week against Essendon, lads. I would love to beat Essendon this week. I would love to.
They're going to be nervous, Essendon.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to be nervous until they know they're in. Yeah. And I don't think they're going to know they're in until the last game of the season.
Yeah.
I would argue that if they don't win this game on the weekend, they won't make finals.
Oh, yeah.
That's
this
how
is
I see
do or
it
die
from
for them,
every
for
perspective,
sure. And this is the softest game, or at least ladder-wise, this is the lowest rated team they're playing for the rest of the year. So
yeah, and we're finding form at the right time.
Yeah.
Like, I think our last 5 weeks, I've said it for the last couple of weeks at least, but I feel like our form over the last 5 weeks has been a lot better than people think. The Adelaide game to me is an outlier. It's like the circumstances, the weather. It's just one of those games where you're like, you know what?
It was also one bad half of footy.
It was really one bad 15-minute spell where they got the scoreboard pressure.
Yeah.
Because in the last quarter, the quarter starts and it's 1 goal the difference, really.
Yeah.
But it looked like, to me, watching the Essendon Adelaide game, it looked like Essendon put all their eggs into that basket. They wanted to win that game, to just take a deep breath and go, okay, we're close. We just beat St Kilda, we're there. And then they dropped it. They didn't just drop it. Let's just stick the boots in a bit. They choked hard in that game, I thought.
Yeah. Oh,
you don't think they...
On Friday night?
Yeah.
Oh, big time.
I mean, I thought...
The biggest joke I've seen all year.
I watched the whole game.
He's like, but Adelaide choked too.
Oh,
but they did choke their lead at one point.
Essendon
that was
favourites.
my point.
Essendon were favourites. It was in front of their home crowd. They were up by how much late in the last? When
3 goals, I'm pretty sure.
3 goals.
Gresh kicked that goal.
Adelaide kicked 7 straight at one point. Their pressure drops. Essendon capitalised, then kicked 8 or 9 in a row, and that's how Essendon works. As soon as there's no pressure, they're schoolyard bullies. But as soon as the pressure's high, they collapse. They can't deal with it. They're a club that has zero mental fortitude when it comes to football games, and I think that's where we can.
Hope no Essendon fans are listening.
I mean that in the nicest way possible, and I think Essendon fans would agree.
If we rock up and we get in their faces, it's game over.
If we apply the pressure that we did on the weekend against West Coast, they will crash and crumble.
For sure.
I would happily put money on it.
Speaking of teams choking, the last time we played them,
that
is exactly what we did. So what can we do to rectify that performance? What's the difference going to be in this game?
don't give them an inch for 1 second of that game.
Exactly.
Don't disrespect them.
Because we let them back in.
Yeah, we got ahead of ourselves. We got arrogant. We thought the game was we were just going to coast.
Mm-hmm.
And that was probably the big turning point in the season. Because at that point we were going to go 2-1 and we had Richmond.
Yeah.
That would have been 3-1.
Yeah.
The ladder would have been completely different at that point in time, and I dare say the rest of our season could have changed completely. Going into who was after Richmond? The Dogs?
No, where we got thumped.
Yeah.
It was the Giants, I think, then the Dogs.
Was it the Giants, then the Dogs?
Yeah.
You know, so that game to me, when I think of like what the loss that really pissed me off, it was that one.
Oh, that was the worst.
Because that's
loss
the
of
one I
season.
went home and I did my mini review, and I was like, I can't believe we lost that game. Like, that's the game we gave away. Essendon didn't win that game.
Yeah.
We
we
gave
lost
it
that
away.
game.
And then we went defensive in the last, and then you just knew Stringer was going to kick one from 55 on the boundary to seal it, and that's exactly what he did.
I'm just glad it wasn't Gresham, to be honest.
Nah, Gresham
And
hit the post, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if any Saints fans going to be making noise when Gresham goes near it. I'm not telling anyone to, but I certainly will. So if you want to join me, go for it. But
Gresham.
yeah.
Nah, I
No,
don't
that's
know.
if he touches the ball.
Yeah, that's a good point. He's actually got to get near it first.
But I think, you know, what we have to be careful of is their midfield. Like, you know, their forward line's pretty decent, but their midfield is where they'll punish you. I don't think their defence is particularly good. They've leaked some of the most goals in the competition, but their midfield's really strong. You know, you've got Durham running through there, Merritt. Caldwell's not playing, apparently.
Yeah, pretty sure he's got
McGrath?
concussion.
Yeah, maybe. Shield.
Nick Hind.
Nick Hind, yeah. There's a few pretty nice players in that midfield.
And Peter Wright, I think, is going to come back this week.
Yeah, Peter Wright's, I wouldn't even worry about him.
Yeah,
at
I was
this
going
point.
to say.
He's been totally ineffective this year.
I don't want to say it going into the game because I feel like I will jinx it, but I wouldn't be too worried about him.
He doesn't dominate all season, but he has the odd game where he looks like Tony Lockett.
Yeah. I'm worried about Stringer and Merritt and those
and
types.
Gresham, to be honest.
Yeah.
He'll be up for this game. We know that.
I'd be more concerned about Stringer. Stringer's a big moments player. Obviously, contract Stringer will kick 7 more goals than uncontracted Stringer, so need to be careful of him. But yeah, the midfield and pressure is where we can get them.
Yeah.
And also, we've got to capitalise. If that ball goes inside 50, it has to hit a target. We have to hit a goal because their defence leaks goals. And if we don't capitalise, we know that they'll outscore us. It'll be a shootout game.
I was going to say, I really do. I think we can pull the trigger on this game and go, all right, you've just had a shootout. You're going to be wrecked from it. Adelaide beat you to your own game. We're going to do the same.
Yeah. No.
We'll kick goals in different ways to Adelaide. Adelaide had the big gorillas to bomb to. But for us, it's going to be very much just running it into the 50 with handball. You know, it's going to be those sort of forward chains that get us our goals.
Exactly. And like I said, we've got to replicate what we did last week.
Yeah, and Higo was kind of quiet on the weekend. I thought he'd have a big one against the Eagles. He didn't. But maybe this is again the game with Butler, Wilson.
Who stole his goal? There was a moment.
Wood.
Yeah, he was not happy about that. He was not happy about that at all.
He definitely was.
But I just his nickname's Snags for a reason. He just loves goals.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's the intensity is going to be very high with this game. There's going to be a lot of neutral fans tuning in, hoping that we get the win as well.
That's the beautiful thing. Is that it's not just Saints fans that want us to win. It's Collingwood fans. It's Carlton fans.
Everyone.
Every
Geelong,
the Bulldogs, any
Bulldogs,
team outside.
Melbourne.
Any team outside the 8.
Everyone's going to be going for us. Except,
pretty much, actually. Yeah.
And you know what? The Bombers fans, they're going to show up and they are going to be loud if they get on top.
Well, it's a final for them.
Yeah, exactly. So Saints fans, show up. You know, if you're a member, fill your seat. I don't want to see general admission completely full with Bombers fans and then a couple of Saints members.
It's our home game.
Yeah, exactly.
So get there.
I still think there's going to be at least 40, 50 there. I reckon it'll be an almost full house.
Yeah.
Has to be.
It just won't get full because I bet a bunch of member seats will stay vacant.
Maybe.
Oh, yeah, it's not going to be completely full, but it'll be a big crowd.
It'll be,
They're a massive club.
No doubt.
They'll think it's a win. They're going to turn up.
Yeah, they don't think it's a win. I've been looking on Big Footy in the Essendon board, and they're like, "Geez, if Saints play like the way they did against the Eagles, we're in trouble."
Yeah,
I was like, okay.
I love that. Like, obviously, finals out of the question for us, but in a weird way, we can still sort of shape the 8 with our next 5 weeks.
The beautiful thing is our players know it, and our coaches know it, and that's been, you know, the beautiful thing about football is, you know, you've always got to find a new goal if the goals change. So obviously making finals, winning a flag, those are the initial goals. Those go out the window. What's the next goal?
Yeah.
And then it's, blooding the youth and finding form, maybe tweaking the game plan. That's another goal.
Setting standards.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Once you do that, what's the next goal?
Yeah.
Now we have that. And it's beat Geelong, end their season. Beat Essendon, end their season.
Carlton.
Screw Brisbane and Carlton's top four hopes. And then just flog Richmond for the fun of it.
Yeah. Some of those teams, I feel like, personally, I don't like any of them. I know just from being at games, other Saints fans don't like them. So if we could just snag two or three of these games, like, that'd be huge for us going into the next year. And I love something that Ross and the players keep saying is that teams that end 2024 badly aren't going to start 2025 well. If you end 2024 well, you're going to start 2025 well as well. So, it's important for a lot of reasons to win these games and still remain competitive,
It makes you relevant still, and I think you learn. And I think it's actually, we're lucky that we have the draw we have. That's the way I look at it. I wouldn't want to be ending the season playing Richmond, West Coast, North. I mean, even North now would be a very competitive game. Yeah. But you don't want to be playing these bottom teams. I want to be playing all these top teams, and we've got them all at home. Isn't this the perfect test?
Yeah.
I love it.
Exactly. No, me too. It's so much more exciting. If we were going to play even Gold Coast, who are still contending, I'd be like, oh, great, I'll get down, whatever. But I'm hyped for the weekend because I'm thinking it's a huge opportunity to get a famous win for the club,
Yeah, every week is important.
Yeah.
And it's redemption because they snatched it from the jaws of victory last time.
Yeah.
So we have a point to prove. I'd take it personally. Go out there, take it personally.
Did you guys go to the last Essendon game?
Oh, I hated it. I hated it.
Sitting on level 3, general admission, all Essendon fans around me. I'm sure you guys had a similar experience.
I went with my Essendon mates. It was just misery.
Yeah.
That was one of the worst days of the football.
And we were so dominant for that first half. Yeah. So clearly the better team.
Even they admitted they're just like, we didn't really deserve to win that one. And I'm like, I know. I watched the whole thing. I was here for 2 hours.
Yeah. But not this week.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. They'll pay for their
selection.
sins.
What do we think?
Selection.
The names of players that I think could come in. Schoenmaker, obviously, I'd love to see back in. Heath, like I've mentioned. Paddy Dow played a really good game at VFL. Caminiti's a test. Max Hall, not sure what's going on with him. He's TBC on the injury list. And then Keeler as well. And then Macon Way, Henry. Anyone that thinks will be dropped, I won't say any names, but,
We've won by 12 goals. Knowing Ross, it'll be one change.
Okay, so Henry for who?
Ooh. Either Ari or Caminiti.
Yeah.
Or actually, Paddy Dow.
Yeah.
Maybe it's Paddy Dow time.
If you guys are Ross and the call is yours, what do you make?
If it's because of Essendon's midfield, I'd bring in Paddy Dow.
Yeah,
I'd just restock there, and then either have him as the sub and bring in Garcia, or just keep Garcia the sub, throw in Paddy Dow with Hunter Clark, Steele, Sinks in there. Then we're starting to match them a little bit more.
Yeah,
and especially on the outside as well. Paddy Dow is a good player to have as an outside player.
I've gone with it for the last 2-3 weeks, but I would just love for it to be Max Heath. I'd love to play that second ruck and have it be him, make the forward line a little taller.
Maybe in a couple of weeks against Richmond.
Yeah.
Maybe then. This could be too big of a game.
But with the 2 rucks, I just feel like it's a perfect opportunity. And like I've said it before, but next year, if he's the second option, we could be playing Melbourne in his first game and he's going up against Max Gorn, best ruck in the comp. There's never a perfect moment to debut a player, in my opinion. So I don't know. That's just me. Sammy, who would you do?
In terms of who I would bring in,
yeah.
Well, as Jake said, to contend with their midfield, I think we have to bring in another midfielder who can effectively clear the ball. Now, I don't necessarily think Paddy Dow is that person, but I think we need an extra body in there purely to contend with them, because otherwise we'll get diced.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Lads, anything else that we wanted to bring up before we wrap up?
No, I'm excited for this game.
Me too.
I think we've been quietly building, and hopefully in the next 4 or 5 weeks we're going to see sort of those, all that hard work come to the fore.
Yeah, definitely. Quick one. I was listening to the radio on my way in, and they were doing a newsread, and apparently there was a fan survey that went out, and they said umpiring is their biggest problem with the AFL at the moment, specifically the inconsistency of it. Mm-hmm. How are we feeling about that one? The weekend wasn't a talking point on the weekend too much, but do we agree with that?
I mean, if you watch enough games of football, it's gone from bad to worse, and to say that there's no issues with the umpiring and it's the best it's ever been is really just incorrect.
Oh, it's just it mocks the fans.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and it's
You know, I think we're dumb. We watch the game every week.
And the only thing we're asking for is consistency and transparency around rules, which we're not getting because, you know, like players will get taken high and it won't get paid for certain teams, but it will for others. Holding the ball doesn't apply to certain players, and either does incorrect disposal. So it's like, well, is the rule applied to certain people and certain teams and not others? Because that's how it seems from an outward perspective.
There's also different rules for different moments in the game. Like if you watch the Essendon Adelaide game, holding the ball that would be paid in the second quarter, in the last 2 minutes when the game's tied, they just put the whistle away, which has always sort of been the case. But it's like, well, if you want to be consistent with the rule, like it's.
Well, they did that with North Melbourne. Lucky got taken high twice in the last 10 minutes, and neither got paid.
Oh, jeez.
And then
that was brutal. I feel so bad for North
Carlton in the last 10. Like. I don't know.
That was rough.
Yeah, but it's definitely there's so much work to do over the summer period for them.
100%.
You guys getting down on Saturday?
Absolutely.
I'll be there after missing the game on the weekend. I'm pumped for this one.
Yeah. Oh, I had a shocking day on Saturday. Rolled my ankle at the end of footy in the change rooms, very embarrassingly, and then hobbled to Marvel. Planned to get there like a bit late in the first quarter. Didn't end up getting there till like halfway through in the second, but got there for the good stuff at least. Hobbled my way over the bridge. Latrobe Street was shut, or whatever that one that goes straight to the gate. Anyway, clean it up, Marvel Stadium, please. Anyway, we good, lads? Anything else to add on to that?
Thanks for watching
it's all good.
and listening, Saners. Get to the game. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, get there, support the boys, get loud. And Kanye Saners. See you next week, guys.
Go
Saints.
Saints.